I appreciate it. Very humbling, honored to be here.
Of course, man. Thanks for being here. Well, so we'll do a quick bio about you. So Spencer Kirksey, you're a husband, father of two, serial entrepreneur. You're the owner of the creative agency Nomadic Media and Invicta Coffee Company. You were a teacher, athletic director, a coach for over 10 years until COVID. Then you started your entrepreneurship journey, starting your own creative agency. You recently had a kid. Beautiful.
That was right.
Child. Well, yeah, man. So let's start with your childhood.
Sure.
So you grew up in Topanga, California, LA County.
Yep.
Up in Topanga, California, LA County.
Yep.
How was it growing up out there?
Man, it was such a cool spot to grow up. And, you know, for anybody listening, I was born in 84, lived out there for a good portion of my upbringing. And I mean, talk about like the wild, wild west of like the 90s growing up there as a little kid. It's a very rural area if nobody knows about Topanga Canyon. It's such a strange place. It's very unique because, like you said, it's LA County, but you drive down PCH, you hook that turn up Topanga Canyon, and it's like a completely different world. A lot of people kind of relate to it as like Ojai, where it's just like this beautiful place that nobody really kind of knows exists. And it was such a cool spot to grow up because, you know, this was before cell phones, really dating myself here, but before cell phones, before like it was like call card and like, you know, a little collect call card and like find a payphone to call mom and dad or something like that. And, you know, it was super rural. That's kind of where I started to really gain my passion and love for the outdoors because it technically, if you want to call it that, it was a small little mountain town, you know, much like a Julian or something like that. Not as isolated as most mountain towns like Big Bear, Arrowhead, Julian, but it definitely had that feel where, you know, there's this huge creek running through it, trees, wildlife, mountains, just like it was such a beautiful place to grow up. And I'm very, very appreciative of being in that spot, you know, growing up in those days because, you know, it was, like I said, it was kind of the wild, wild west. We got to do whatever we wanted to do out there. And it was probably the last generation of like, come home when it gets dark, you know, like it was great. It was awesome. I loved it out there.
Nice, man. What did your parents do growing up out there?
So my dad, he was a computer engineer, ended up creating his own business as a computer consultant, and he still does it a little here and there. He doesn't need to. I think he just does it to stay busy. But that's what he did for a very, very, I mean, up until now, it's like forever. And my mom was a stay-at-home. So she and I, you know, spent a lot of time together because of my dad's business. Man, he would take off for, you know, large, you know, portions throughout the week. So it'd be gone for a week, home for 4 or 5 days, gone for another week. You know, his business was doing really well and he did a lot of traveling. Conversely, I would say that did put a little bit of a damper on our relationship later on, just because it was just my mom and dad for very, very, you know, long strands of the time. And so I would say that definitely hurt a little bit. And, you know, fast forward into me, you know, starting my own business, I started chasing the carrot too, you know, and I've got 2 young ones at home. At the time last year, I only had one, and I was traveling a shitload and making great money, meeting new people, you know, doing all the things that, you know, are necessary to grow a business. But then, man, I like called my dad once and I was like, and I actually like started to get kind of choked up because I always kind of resented him for that growing up in my adolescence. And then, you know, fast forward, call it 20 years or something, I saw it happening to me. I saw myself doing the same thing. And I called him kind of choked up and like, man, I get it. And I just want to thank you so much for sacrificing that, you know, and I'm sure he didn't want to do that, you know, but again, stay-at-home mom, you know, living in LA, you know, owning a home. We had acreage, you know, it was very rednecky hippie like, right? But like still like that was an awesome upbringing. And, you know, again, looking back at it, I probably had some resentment towards that. And then putting myself in that, I was like, oh, I get it. I saw myself falling exactly into that same trap that he did. And luckily I recognized it in 12 months.
Right.
You know, he probably, and I'm sure he did recognize it, but you know, he was kind of stuck, you know, where he had to do that, you know, so.
Anyway, so it sounds like your dad really left an impression about how you grew up, but you're really close with your mom. How do you think your mom shaped you?
Man, my mom and I had a very interesting relationship because,
Were you an only child?
I was an only child.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know. I was an only child. And like I said, she and I spent a lot of time together because, you know, my dad, you know, he had to go do what he had to go do. And we would butt heads a lot. We had very, very similar personalities, very stubborn, always wanted to get the last word in. But she was a great woman. She was super strong, very like tons and tons of grit. She had a very, very rough upbringing. And I know that took a toll on her. She's actually passed. So, you know, I try to take the good lessons that she's given me and try to, you know, all the bad times, you know, you just, you know, it's tough. Like you're not a parent yet. But once I became a parent, just like everything changes, dude. Like, and there's no blueprint to this stuff. It's like supporting your family and being a good husband and being a good dad and like, you know, doing all the things and also taking care of yourself all simultaneously is so hard to do. And I don't know if a lot of people talk about it or enough people talk about how hard that is to do. You just figure out a way to do it.
And it probably makes you connect with your parents so much more when you become a parent.
Yes. Yeah. And like I said, like, you know, I connected with my dad and I was like, man, like, I get it now. I finally get it where like you had to just do what you had to do to make sure everything stayed together. And that's not to say my mother wasn't doing it too. She, you know, my dad was out, you know, making money for the family and she was the glue at home, making sure everything stayed together as best as they could, you know?
So growing up in that environment, dad's going for work and we know each other a little bit.
Yeah.
And you're a busy guy. So how was it living in that environment as only child with your mom and then going into high school? How's that time frame? Was it just running wild? Dad's gone every week? Or?
So, you know, rewinding, and if anybody knows anything about mountain towns, there's not a whole lot to do. And you get yourself in a lot of trouble, boredom. As there's that saying, you know, Satan has work for idle hands. And we'll find trouble, you know? And so I wouldn't say I was the worst kid out there. I definitely knew a lot worse out there, but you know, being an only child, having a father figure, but again, inconsistently, you know, I definitely found myself in a lot of sticky situations growing up. There's definitely some entitlement there growing up for sure.
Give me a sticky situation.
A sticky situation. No, just, you know, getting mixed up with the wrong people and, you know, lots of alcohol at a young age, really young age. I'm talking like grade school. And yeah, just, you know, not listening to the moral compass, you know, cause in my own head, and I think looking back at the memories I can recall on, you know, I felt like I had a pretty good moral compass growing up.
Yeah.
You know, I knew, hey, this is not a good situation to be in, or hey, we should not do this, or this is fine, or whatever. And so, you know, but again, listening to it, you know, everybody's got a moral compass, but if you listen to it or not, you know,
especially when you're that age and everybody because I grew up in a small town in Georgia and everybody in the small town's doing the same kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And what are we doing on the weekend? Well, everybody's doing this, so I guess I'm doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. And me growing up too, like lots of, what's the terminology for it? But, didn't have a lot of confidence, you know, very, what's that word? Whatever. But yeah, I had a lot of issues around that with myself and just, you know, low self-esteem. That's what I was going for. Yeah. And so of course, like, the people I gravitated towards, you know, or the people who are around me, you know, not doing great things. Well, I'm just going to do it anyway because I want to fit in or whatever it is. So, again, just, you know, doing shit like that. And even in high school I feel like I never really started to grow up until I started getting married and having kids, honestly. And I'm going to be 40 in a month.
You'd be surprised. We live in San Diego right now. How many 30, 35-year-olds find themselves in somebody's living room at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Still living out the
Yeah,
party.
I know. And again, I live that, but and I still feel like I started to figure things out a lot later than most. But yeah, man, I'm so thankful. You know, I met my wife. She's, you know, a beautiful woman inside and out, and
How'd you meet
she's
your
had
wife?
a lot of patience with me. Dude, we actually met on a dating app.
Nice.
But this was before, I want to, and
All
again,
right.
dating myself. This was before it was like,
So this is like Match.com? Or
this
like,
was Plenty of Fish, Plenty of Fish, which was actually known for, like, at the time, and could still be now, I have no idea, but it was like a hookup.
yeah.
You know, and she and I both got out of long-term relationships right around the same time. And then we both met like 2 weeks after that, and it's been off to the races ever since.
Nice.
Yeah. But yeah, it's, yeah, she definitely helped me get out of there, and a ton of patience with me, and put her in a lot of sticky situations of just being a dumbass, you know, but,
That's one of the best things that can help a man grow up is a good woman.
Oh yeah.
And one that you want to commit to and that you love and you want to be a better guy every day for.
Yeah. 100%, dude. 100%.
So high school, only child, growing up in that environment, growing up there in the mountains in the country. How'd you get into teaching? Did you go into teaching right after high school?
Yeah. So, something I didn't mention, that I was an athlete. And again, going back to, like, man, really wish I got my shit together a lot earlier, because I was a very talented athlete.
What'd you play?
I was a baseball player.
Oh, nice.
And so, you know, played 3 years of varsity baseball, was captain of the baseball team, ended up going, but again, not getting my shit together, didn't have great grades, ended up playing through junior college, then went to a school out in the middle of nowhere in Missouri. And again, just kind of like going through the motions, and not really taking accountability and giving it my all, really. And yeah, I just got, and I honestly did get burnt out, by the time, my little stint in Missouri, went, but I played a year of semi-pro ball. And that was like my last ditch effort. But again, my heart wasn't in it anymore. My parents threw me in baseball at a very young age. And once they figured out I was good at that, they did not let me play anything else. And, I really wish I had the opportunity to play other sports, because, you see me wide shoulders. I love, hitting things. Football. I would have been really good with football. And, so I retire from baseball, go back to college. I end up going to Cal State Northridge to finish up my degrees. And I ended up playing rugby for like a year and a half. Damn, dude, I had never had so much fun in my entire life, dude.
Like, where was this 5 years ago?
Yeah, where was this 5 years ago? Exactly, man. It was so much fun. I got to live out those, quote unquote, like football, fantasies, right? Where I'm just cracking dudes. And it was so much fun. I had such a blast, best shape of my life. And then once that was over, I kind of dabbled in some like club stuff, because there's tons of club.
So
rugby
how old
out
are you
there.
at this time frame when rugby's coming to an end?
Oh man, I'm terrible in numbers, but I want to say, maybe it's 28 or so, something like that. Yeah. So, high school ends, go play college baseball, for like, call it 4 years or something like that. Then I take a break, and then I start my coaching career, and that's kind of how this roundabout conversation comes back from how you were asking about, how I get into teaching. So I was this athlete and took that little bit of time off to go back to school, and then I played rugby, and then before you know it, I'm like the oldest guy on the team. I'm like damn near 30, and I'm playing with like 21-year-olds and 22-year-olds and stuff like that. But nevertheless, it was a good time. But to answer your question, that's how I got into the teaching industry. It was because I loved athletics. I got my degrees in kinesiology. I have a master's degree in athletic administration. And so I knew that's the direction I wanted to go, because again, love athletics, love everything, about, being involved in sports. And that's how, and I was like, okay, well, I can't make a ton of money just being a coach. So how can I tie this all together? And that's how I did it. I was like, okay, I'll be a PE teacher. And so I
High school PE teacher? Or?
So yeah, I actually have taught almost every single grade level. But yeah, I was high school. I've taught high school. I've taught middle school. I've taught elementary.
What's the most receptive grade level, or like the best one that you connected with?
Oh man, each one had like their own little flavor.
Because you can't just have like fourth graders doing wind sprints for 20 minutes, right?
Yes, you can.
You're right, you can. They probably need it too.
Here's the thing, though. I will say, you either love me or hated me. Like, and that's the parents too. Some of the parents saw how hard I pushed kids and they loved it.
Yeah.
And then the granola parents were like, "Oh my God, like how can you do that to my baby Joseph or whatever?" You know. So it was very interesting. It was either hot and cold. There was no in between with me. But
have you seen those old? It's on the internet. Those old training videos of like the high schools around like the 60s, 70s of Kennedy, and like they're running like military like obstacle courses.
Yeah, they're doing like American Ninja Warrior, dude. And there isn't an overweight kid out there. Everyone's just
all
ripped
shredded.
Yeah, everyone's lean. Yeah, it's wild to watch that. And there's like no safety nets anywhere. They're like literally like 30 feet up in the air. Yeah. It's so great. I love that. And I would try to bring a little bit of that to my classes. I never was really the guy who would just roll the balls out, you know, and let kids play dodgeball and all that kind. I mean, I would, but you know, there was always lessons to be learned, and I was always pushing kids hard and finding ways to incorporate exercise into like stupid little games we'd be playing. And I remember one game that the kids hated but loved at the same time. And basically, you break the whole class into two teams. Everyone's in their own respective spots, and there's essentially a huge tic-tac-toe court I've created up front. So it's about 30 yards from them. And basically each team has 3 flags, and how the game starts is everyone does 10 burpees. And then obviously the first person to pop up, you sprint to the tic-tac-toe, you drop your flag in, sprint back. It's like a relay race, touch the next person. They start their burpees, and whoever can essentially get their burpees in and sprint as fast as they can and get tic-tac-toe nailed down, that team wins.
And this was probably 6, 7, 8 years ago you were doing this full swing?
Yeah, man. When was COVID? I mean, like 4 years ago now. So yeah, somewhere in that time frame. Yeah.
Do you think schools are getting progressively softer, or is it past 10, 20 years it's just kind of staying the same? What do you think teaching here in California?
I mean, I think everything is, I mean, you zoom out, I think everything's gotten softer, like in all industries. I mean, look at our military. Is a perfect example, right?
Why do you think that is?
Oh man, I've got my speculations about all that, but
what do you think?
We're gonna lose a lot of listeners right now, dude.
Let's hear it.
No, I think it has something to do with just trying to weaken our country and our situation. I think that has a big deal with it. I think I can't remember. It was like the 100-year plan or something like that. China came out with some kind of 100-year plan. I don't know if you're aware of this, but it's essentially, you're aware of this, right? I'm not going to go into detail because I don't know it too well, but it's essentially how, you take over the world. And I look at the food we eat, the things we do, the things we don't do anymore. And I can only speculate that, man, this is intentional weakening of our, of our nucleus, essentially.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where my speculation goes. But to answer your question, I think if you look from, again, the gymnastics class or the PE class that looks like a gymnastics class from 40, 50 years ago to now, where I think for sure it's gotten weaker.
Yeah, and I forgot who said it, but I mean, is an old historian, but the only way that you could destroy America is from within.
Yes.
It's way too strong. You can't have a full frontal attack. You just have to erode it.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is what was going on during the Cold War. There was this battle of cultures. And I think they wrote, in the 60s during the Cold War, they wrote a letter. I think Kinnison. I'm probably getting the name wrong.
Okay.
But they talked about the way to beat the Soviet Union is to live up to our American morals, to live up to the values that we preach.
Yeah.
And that led to this Kennedy era of being strong, being healthy, really embracing this American spirit of capitalism. But it seems like really maybe in the past 20 years, it feels like ever since, at least for my lifetime, the '08 crisis, there was this Occupy Wall Street movement. Everybody was kind of catching on to capitalism and then these large corporate entities that were controlling everything. And then right around the crash in '08, you had Occupy Wall Street movements. Everybody was starting to catch on. Then you have Obama later on, but you have identity politics just get thrown in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
And then really on the left, Occupy Wall Street, the banks, these really large corporate, all that went away. And now we're so focused on classes and races and these identity politics.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think there's something there for sure, man. I'm hoping that, I mean, it got really bad and it's still pretty bad. But I'm hoping that we can right the ship and turn this thing over, because I mean, I've got nowhere else to look or think that, this has been intentional.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because it's almost like movies. Look at movies, for example. Like in the 80s, in the 90s, you had strong leading men. You had Stallone.
Yep.
You had Schwarzenegger. All the movies of this time, they were all really strong leading men.
Yep.
And nowadays, you watch movies. I talk to my girlfriend about this all the time. You watch movies, you watch TV shows. All the men are either these affable, just know-nothing guys, or they're weak, or they're silly, or it's the goofy dad no one takes serious. There's no strong men, it seems like, on movies or TV.
Yeah. No, it's true.
It's on purpose.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it is 100%. 100%.
So COVID happened about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
4 years ago. How'd you get that shift from teaching into what you do now?
Yeah, it's wild, man. So basically, I'm a PE teacher. I'm an athletic director. I'm a athletic coach. And COVID happens. We try to do like the online thing. I'm literally filming videos of me like making up workouts for kids to do. And they quickly start to figure out, like most businesses did, they're like, hey, we can't sustain this. Like, there's no way we can continue charging the money we're charging parents for these online classes, right? And so they start making cuts. And I was in the first wave of cuts, which I understand.
Athletics was in the first wave of cuts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because, again, there's like no lesson planning there, right? It's like I'm coming up with workouts, and it's like, what can I, it's like I can't be like, hey kids, let's go play soccer. Let's go learn about this, that, and the other. It's just like me doing workouts. It wasn't great. And I know they were looking for a reason to get me out of there anyway, so they're like, oh, this is perfect. Did
they know your internal opinions on things? They didn't
oh
like
yeah,
it?
yeah. And I mean, I was one of 3 males on campus.
Oh wow.
And yeah, a lot of granola, lots of granola there.
And this was in LA you were teaching?
This is actually in South Orange County.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, it was definitely, I stuck out like a sore thumb, dude, big time. And just the way I have always been for the most part is, I haven't been the biggest follower. I will if I think it's the right idea. If I don't think it is, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
And when you're an employee and you're a teacher and, you've got some douchebag administrator telling you stuff that you're like, this is just crap.
Yeah.
I'm going to raise my hand like, nope, this is bullshit.
Yeah, you're just making this up on a power trip.
Yep. I'm not going to do that. Sorry. And so they couldn't stand me. But the parents, for the most part, they all love me, and a lot of the kids love me. So like they couldn't justify getting me out of there. And I was the one who created their entire athletic department. There was nothing there before. There was no PE classes. There was no after-school sports. There was nothing.
And this is high school.
No, this was middle school.
And there was no athletic.
There was nothing.
What?
There was nothing. And so I came in, and maybe it was my own selfishness, because I'm like, I want to eventually be an athletic director.
Right.
So I'm going to create athletics here. And it was a great success. We literally, like, from nothing, and then you fast forward, man, it probably took me 8 months to get everything going, and we're in a league competing against other schools. It was awesome. And we actually did well for most of our athletics that we offered. And one of the things that I love the most is the one thing I'll hang my hat on. I don't give myself a lot of credit on a lot of things, but the one thing that really hit my heartstrings is there was a lot of kids, because again, very left leaning, very granola, very artsy, not a lot of athletics, obviously in that school, but the parents, again, wasn't something that was like big on their list. There's kids who would essentially be stuck doing something that their parents wanted to do, or they just didn't have the resources to do it. And I was able to bring athletics into the school, and now these kids have these opportunities to do things that they wanted to do. And I remember there was this girl, and her parents were essentially at the time forcing her to be doing river dancing. Okay. And this girl was as tall as me, like says volleyball player written right on her forehead, right? She was aggressive. She had the attitude. She was competitive, but she's stuck doing river dancing. And you could tell she just wants to die, And finally, and her mom was one of our teachers there. And finally I cornered the mom. I was like, look, your daughter really wants to participate. And I know like there could be some like logistic stuff because you live out here and most of our games are over here. Like we can figure out a way to get her to these games and practices. Like, I think this would be really beneficial for her. And, she's like, oh, I don't know. And finally she allows her to play volleyball. Well, you fast forward, she's a stud in club volleyball and now she's going to UCLA. Oh, wow. So I'm like, without that program there, she may have never gotten the opportunity to, go explore those options with volleyball or any other sport for that matter,
And that's cool to see the impact because your nudge kind of altered her entire trajectory.
Yeah. It's really weird.
Yeah.
Really weird when you say it that way.
Right? Just that one little nudge, her whole life changed.
Yeah.
Do they still have that program stood up at the school?
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah. Once COVID hit, everything fell apart, dude.
And you think, was this like a charter school or private?
It was private. Yeah.
You think Orange County is still like the conservative bastion of Southern California. Yeah, but it's not. So it was in Laguna. So it's their own little bubble in there. It truly feels like a bubble. So COVID happened. They shuttered the athletic department. You got let go, and then so how'd you shift into nomadic media?
So before everything went down, I started picking up cameras. I started messing around with photography. Knew I had an eye with it, but back then it was like all cell phone pictures, and then I kind of moved to GoPros, and then I got my own like actual. It was a cheap one you pick off of Amazon. I think it was the Nikon D3300. If anyone listening knows cameras, they'll know like that's like your very very basic entry level camera. When you pick up on Amazon for like $300. And so I started messing around with that stuff while I was still teaching.
So why cameras? What got you?
I don't know. I remember my mom, and my mom was very artistic. And she always told me that I had that in me, but again, sports kind of took over everything. So I never really had the opportunity to, again, like explore those avenues there.
And growing up in a small town in the country, being the photography kid is probably not. When you're the sports guy, it's not the thing to do.
And again, mountain town, again, if anybody listening knows anything about small towns, mountain towns, it's like, if you're a good parent, you know what will happen if you just let them run amok. And trust me, I did a fair amount of running and mucking, but you want to get them out of there. You know what I mean? So again, like as soon as they could, it's like, okay, let's go baseball. Let's go something like it was always getting me to go get out of there, go, get introduced to new people, new faces, new demographics, new activities. It was always that. And so, yeah, that's why that whole, I never really knew, I think I did a photography project in middle school, and apparently I blew it out of the water. But again, I was like in sixth grade. I had no idea what was going on. But it was really cool. We had a family friend who was a legit photographer. And she gave me like, I'm talking like serious manual cameras where you have to like take the film, go in a dark room, like go get it developed. And I got to learn all that. I couldn't tell you how to do any of that now, but I did a school project on that actually where I came from, was Topanga, because it's been around for, ever. and it's got a lot of history in there. And I remember them telling me that, you know, I did such a great job with it. But fast forward, stopped doing that. I didn't even take photo in high school, dude. Like nothing, just sports. That was it. Baseball
COVID
specifically.
COVID happens and you pick up the camera.
Yeah, it was. I'm picking up a camera. I'm kind of starting to dabble with it while I'm a teacher, and then COVID happens. I get cut, and you know, like everybody, started to panic. I was like, okay, well, shit, what do I do now? Like,
did you already have your first kid at this point?
No, not yet.
Okay.
No, not yet. Thankfully.
So you were married.
I was married. Actually, I take that back. We were pregnant. Pregnant. Yeah.
So you were married with a baby on the way. COVID happened.
Yeah.
And they let you off.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's also something people need to understand is that nobody gives a fuck, dude. When it's business, money's always going to win, dude. And so anyway, do that. Figure out. So basically, I figure out what I'm going to do. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And I basically I'm at a crossroads where I'm like, okay, do I go back to teaching where, if I'm being truly transparent, I was done like 2 years before COVID even happened. Like I was just checked out. I was so just burnt out. It's Groundhog Day. You're dealing with entitled kids, entitled parents, you know, the politics of being in a school. I was getting mentally just burnt out. So do I go do that? Because again, I know a bunch of people in the industry. I could probably figure out another teaching situation. Or do I go in a completely different fucking direction? And I knew a guy who, and again, you know, this is when Instagram was a completely different beast before for what it is now. And, you know, networking in Instagram. And I knew a guy who was essentially a freelancer for a marketing agency in Colorado. And I was like, hey man, like if there's anything out there, like I would love to like shadow you guys or like whatever, right? Like I obviously have to get paid. I'm a grown ass man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be taking any intern jobs, but if there's something I will learn on the fly, I'll figure it out. And it just so happened that agency had picked up a firearm client or client in the firearm industry. And they had, again, a lot of marketing agencies. There's a lot of granola in there.
Oh yeah.
And they had no idea how to service this client. Cause that wasn't their demographic. Right. And again, none of them did that on the side. The guy I knew did, but he was only one guy, you know, and he wasn't, you know, a big, you know, a power pusher or anything in the company at the time. And so they're like, hey, look, we've got this client. You're an outdoorsman. You're familiar with firearms and all in that whole world. Like we'll bring you on and you can be the social media manager for this company. And I was the social media manager. And then I ended up being a project manager and I shot content on the side for this brand for like 2 years. But then of course this brand was in the ammunition industry. And I don't know if you remember, I think it was right smack dab in the middle of COVID where you couldn't find ammo if your life depended on it, right?
I was traveling to, I think it was middle of maybe 21. It had been going on for a while. Yeah. And I'd taken a trip to Phoenix. And while I was in Phoenix, I was like, I should probably stock up on some ammo because you can't find it anywhere in California. Yeah. And I remember I drove to two different gun dealers in ammo shops outside of Phoenix. And I drive up and I pull up and one of them, there's a line out the door. And I'm like, this is crazy. And I walk inside, stand in line, walk inside. All the guns on the shelves, all the rifles, all the pistols in the countertop, they're all sold out.
Yep.
And I'm like, what is going on? And like, hey, do you guys have any 9mm ammo? I was like, we're totally sold out.
Yeah, he probably laughed at you, bro. He's like, 9mm? Yeah, sure, let me go grab that.
Went to the other gun store, same thing. They're like almost all sold out of their inventory on firearms. Ammo, totally sold out. Yeah. I'm like, man, what is going on? Yeah.
Yeah, no. And so I had that specifically a company under my wing that was in the ammunition industry and they had nothing to sell. And we kept on coming up with it. And I look back now and I'm like, oh, they're so stupid. Like we were coming up with every other product like basically ammunition and firearm accessory things, everything else but ammo, because again, they just couldn't make it fast enough. And so they ended up clearing house. The company themselves like ended up clearing house. Like they fired their marketing director, they fired a bunch of people, they fired me. They just cleaned house, dude. And so again, it was on to the next one. And I learned that very quickly, to where nothing is forever, especially when, you are providing a service for a brand, a client, a company. Nothing lasts forever. So, those first couple times I would lose clients, I would realize, I wouldn't take it personally, and I would just realize like, hey, nothing lasts forever, pivot on to the next one, and it's happened a few times where I've gotten complacent, and I think everything is rainbow and roses, and then, the floor falls out, and I'm like, oh shit, I gotta figure out what my next move is.
Yeah.
But now, I've for the most part, I, like most people, I get a little stuck there, but for the most part, I'm like, hey, this isn't gonna last forever. Always have backup. Always be, setting feelers out to other brands that you're tight with or you've had some kind of connection with. Just always be kind of moving around a little bit, because again, nothing lasts forever, and marketing especially is always the first thing to get cut when shit hits the fan.
So that firearm ammunition company, they shut their doors. That client goes away. You were freelancing, working for this company. So how did that pivot into your current company now, Nomadic Media?
Yeah. So again, start picking up other clients. I'm a one-man show. So I'm running social media management. I'm doing partnerships. I'm shooting content all on my own. And I realized, like, man, what's retirement look like now?
What am I doing? In my life
what am I
now?
doing? Like, I'm working my dick off right now.
Yeah.
And like, I'm making good money, but I'm like, am I going to do this forever? Like, am I just gonna die on like a camera set right now on a shoot?
Yeah.
Like, what does this look like? So, I started to kind of mull things over. I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna do my own thing, and I'll keep doing little things here and there with other clients that I have partnerships with. So like I'll work with other agencies to hit a goal or whatever it is, and I just kind of realized like, oh, like I should start my own thing. And as crazy as that sounds, because again, not having any marketing background, everything's just been on a kind of teach yourself basis, figure it out on your own kind of thing. And I was like, fuck it, I'm going to do it. And I started Nomadic Media, and it's been great. And then this last year I started to bring on more, because I'm like, okay, like again, one-man show, how can I expand? Because I can only do so much. Like everyone's got their own limit. I was doing a lot, but I realized like, okay, my quality of work is going to start dropping off if I continue to keep saying yes to these jobs. And I'm one man, you know what I mean? I can only do so much. And so I'm like, all right, how do I scale this? How do I continue to grow? And I just started bringing people on. So I have 2 people that I kind of bounce back with social media management and scheduling. And I've got a couple people I lean on for email marketing. That's something I noticed as well. That is something very, very important right now. Especially really more than anything, especially because of all the censorship you see on social media now. The one thing that is not
was bought by Elon.
What's that?
Thank God Twitter was bought by Elon.
Yeah.
Changed everything. You go on Instagram, Facebook, and then you go on X, totally different page.
Oh yeah.
It's like, whoa, where's all this stuff been at?
Yeah. And again, going back to what I was saying is like, I just realized that if you're not taking advantage of email, like you're really missing the drop here, because your social media, like there is not a world anymore that all of your followers are going to be seeing your stuff. And that could be for multiple different things or different reasons why, but however you cut it, there's no way your whole entire following is going to be seeing your content. It's not going to happen. And especially now, like, again, if you are anywhere in the outdoor industry where there's hunting, fishing, firearms, fighting, combat, like your shit gets suppressed, dude. They'll never admit it. Well, they kind of admit it now, but before they fought that tooth and nail saying, no, we don't shadow ban here. It's bullshit. You don't.
No, yeah.
Yeah. And politics, same thing, right? Like it gets a blanket thrown on it,
Did you see that? It was a couple months ago, that update that they did on Instagram where they would filter political content.
Yeah.
And you had to go into your settings and say, do not filter.
Yeah.
And it's specifically political content.
Yeah. It's so crazy.
Crazy.
So crazy.
It's the election year coming up.
Yeah.
They had to add an update.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty wild, man. And so, yeah, I realized quickly that, hey, what's something that's not censored and when you can reach a lot of people? Email marketing, so there are some more parameters now. Before it was really the wild, wild west with email marketing, where you could just be like, hey, give me your email list.
I'm going to hit up these 1,000 people.
Yeah. You want to swap,
Yeah.
And I mean, it's still a thing.
Yeah.
But it's definitely frowned upon now. But
some regulations around about who you can reach. They have to.
They've got it. They've got to. They've got to approve that or accept that. They're willing to accept email marketing and stuff like that. But
so how's your wife doing all this? I mean, COVID happens.
Yeah.
The world's on fire.
Yeah.
You're pivoting into media and the camera world.
Yeah. It scared the shit out of her, man. Scared the shit out of her. But like I said, she is, such a sweet person and such a patient person. And she trusted me. She could easily have been like, hey, no, let's play it safe. Just go find another teaching job, and then, we can figure out, if there's something else you want to do, we can figure it out. But she saw that, I was like, no, this is what we should do, or I should do, for us. And she trusted me, and, here we are. I've got my own little creative agency that does pretty well. And, it's so wild when I zoom out and think about where I was and where I am now and how all that happened in between. It's incredible. But yeah, she, and again, when you are a freelancer or again, you're a contractor, like I don't work for anybody. I work for myself and I provide services for other people.
Yeah.
It's scary, dude. It's very, very scary. And it took her a little while. Now she's pretty numb to it. But, when clients drop off, it's first like, oh shit, oh fuck. Like, how are we going to oh my gosh, it's all these things that, all these oh no's that pop in your head. Now she's like, oh, sucks. You'll be all right. Like, you'll be fine. Because she trusts me. She knows that I'm not going to sit there and dwell. I'm going to pivot. I'm going to find something new. I'll fill the gap. We'll go. We'll keep moving forward.
Yeah, and it's important to have.
Yeah.
Because the woman in your life can make or break your life. You can make it miserable, or she can support you, be the rock.
Ain't that the truth, man?
Yeah. And once you find, like for me, probably a lot of people, but for me specifically, like my girlfriend right now, when you find the right person, there's something, and I never really believed it until I met her. And there's something inside of you that says this is the one.
Mm-hmm.
Like people talk about, oh, I'd love it for this, that she's the one, but for me, until I experienced it and met her, I didn't believe it. But then I met her and I was like, oh,
yeah,
this is going to change my life.
Yeah, 100%. It's so true. Because for whatever reason it is, like I remember exes and, all the people I thought were the one, and all that. But you zoom out and you take a look and you're like, oh man, there's so many red flags with that. Like I was chasing something else, dude.
Yeah.
But with her, like it was immediate. Like, oh wow, like our first date, I remember it truly felt like we had known each other for years, And when you have that feeling, especially very, very early on, you got something special for sure.
So you guys have been married now for...
Oh, dude, you're going to put me on blast like that?
They're not watching this deep into the podcast.
No, so we've been married for, I want to say 7 years. We've been together for 10.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And we actually we both came to that conclusion. We were like laying in bed. We're like, holy shit, dude. Like we've been together for 10 years.
I've known you for 10 years.
Yeah. Again, it doesn't feel like that.
It goes by so fast.
It goes by so fast. Speaking about going by so fast, like my kid's 3, going to be 4 this year. And I'm like, my son. I'm like, what? How the fuck did that happen, dude? I still look at photos of you when like you were just shitting in a diaper, dude. Like it's insane. And I've got a 9-month daughter now, and it's a little different this round because she's going to be our last. We're shutting it down at 2, but I look at her now, and again, she's still quite an infant. She's 9 months, but I'm like soaking it up a little bit extra, soaking it up a little bit extra where, and she's absolutely fucking adorable, and she's just such a happy baby. And, but it's also me looking, I'm like, damn, like,
how fast it's going to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I just look at it because I look at my son, I'm like, dude, 3 years was like that.
Yeah.
And before I know it, she's going to be a year. And then after that, I'm going to be, sizing up boyfriends,
There's so many sad country songs about just this thing right here.
It's so true, dude. So true. My life is a sad country song. But yeah, man, it's so crazy how fast it goes, but I wouldn't change it for anything. Like I said earlier, like I became a completely different man once I became a father, man. It's been the most amazing ride ever.
And that's what a lot of people that I talk to that I've known before kids and after kids, they said the same thing.
Yeah.
It's changed all of their priorities in life.
Yeah.
About how they're going about doing things, the person they want to be. Some people it doesn't, some people it does.
Yeah.
But because we met, what was it, maybe a couple years ago now.
Yeah.
We met at Real Warriors. Shout out Real Warriors.
Yeah, Real Warriors Foundation. Yep. Their Fins and Fairway tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to you, and you were covering the event for that nonprofit for the vets. And I got to talking to you, and I remember what stood out to me is like, yeah, I was a PE teacher, and COVID and now I do this, and I'm like, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Like, how do you go from that to this?
I know.
It's such an interesting story.
Yeah.
But that must have been at least 2 years now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 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 I mean, COVID. I literally just did a 180 right when I got released. Again, I think we said it was like 4 years ago. And nomadic media has been its thing for 2 now. So it's been wild. It's been so wild, dude.
So did you? So Real Warriors Foundation,
yeah,
amazing organization. They take vets out deep sea fishing on these trips and fundraise a lot of money. We met at their golf tournament.
Yep.
But they also do overnight fishing trips.
Yes, they do.
For the vets.
Yes.
I went on one. You said you went on one too?
Oh, yeah. So I shoot a lot of their content. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So those are grinds, dude.
Yeah,
the overnights are grinds.
How was your experience on the boat?
Dude, I love Real Warriors. Joey is the man. He's the founder. And we actually have quite a lot of laughs because Joey, he doesn't do well on boats, yet he's
the founder.
He's the founder of Real Warriors. It's this phenomenal ongoing joke that I think will never die. But he's a solid dude, and I reached out to him once, again, trying to grow my business. And nonprofits are tough because, depending on the nonprofit, money can be pretty tight, but he's like, hey, like we really need to up our content creation. Like I'd love to start bringing you out on these boats and everything. And that's how that all started with Real Warriors. And yeah, dude, there's been a couple where I'm like, dude, fuck this.
Because I think we might have been on the same kind of boats. It's like a little coffin rack.
Yeah, dude.
Of the boat on like a half-inch thick pad.
Oh, dude, and you're like sticking to the pad. It's just like, it's not glamorous, dude. It's not glamorous. And you're just sitting there just rocking back and forth.
There's no evenness when you're laying in those cots. So either your feet are above your head, your head are, and you're just like,
no.
All right, this is my life for the next 12 hours.
Yeah, and mind you, we leave at like 2 a.m. or something like that. It's pitch black. Everyone's tired. Everyone's still groggy. Like it's not glamorous getting those things off. But once the sun comes up and the fish are biting, I've filmed some crazy trips with them and just. Every quarter turn, just like gaff, and there's just tuna flying everywhere. And when it's on, dude, it is so fun.
And then the guys they pick too. I mean, I think I was connected through Semper Fi Foundation.
Okay.
And they connected me to Real Warriors, but we were on this trip, great group of guys on that boat. Sleeping on that boat, not great, worst part. But all of it, I remember waking up that next morning, didn't get much sleep, and I wake up and you see the sun coming up just on the horizon out there, just the beautiful sunrise. And I was like, and then sunset too. We were out there, and I was just thinking, like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
I could never be on a boat in the Navy. Thank God I wasn't on a boat. Fuck that.
This is amazing for beautiful. 10 hours.
Yeah, for one trip, this is awesome. Yeah, whoever like is stationed on a ship, you dude. Poor fucking soul.
Oh my God. Yeah, you get a Purple Heart just for doing that. Yeah, it's but again, some dudes like live, breathe, shit that stuff, dude. They're like, oh, we're only going to be out for 2 days straight. You're like, what are you talking about, dude? I need to get on land now.
Yeah, and maybe you get used to it because I remember.
For sure.
For me, it was I had been deep sea fishing in a while, and I'm on the boat and we're out there. I'm like, all right, this is fine. And about the time I go to bed, I just start feeling slightly uncomfortable.
Yeah,
just slightly sick, not getting sick, but. And then I go to bed and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to be slightly uncomfortable for the next 14 hours.
Yeah, yeah.
But then the day comes and you're fishing and you forget about it.
Yeah.
Nighttime comes and you eat dinner and then you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that doesn't feel good.
Yeah. And a lot of those guys, not necessarily real warriors, but like a lot of those charters, like guys are drinking on the boats. And so I'm like, I will not do that. Like I am as sober as a bird when I'm doing those things because it does not take a lot to set me off on a boat, right? I can't imagine mixing alcohol with that, dude. Like, there's no chance that does well. Or, like, guys are, like, dipping and everything. I'm like, no chance, dude. I'm drinking water, and that's about it, dude. There's no chance, dude.
Yeah, I remember. So it reminds me. So when I was on Camp Pendleton, this was a long time ago, a buddy of mine, Austin, shout out Austin, wherever you are in the world. We were, so for corpsmen, you go through this training, this medical training to work with the Marine Corps. And on Camp Pendleton, there's this building that we slept in called Devil Dock Hall. And so you go off and do your training in like the Del Mar area of Camp Pendleton, and they go back to Devil Dock Hall and sleep at night, and that's where everybody stays. And for anybody that's been out there, there's these little picnic benches, like right behind where the pull-up bars are at. And so at night, all the guys will just sit out there and smoke and dip and bullshit. And I never forget it. So we're all out there bullshitting after a long day. And Austin was like, I think I'm gonna do like an upper decker and a bottom decker. And I'm like, what are you talking about, you psychopath? Don't do that. Don't.
It's a terrible idea, but keep going.
Yeah, right? No one stopped him.
Yeah.
Like, all right. And so he had, I think, Grizzly Wintergreen, but he didn't have enough in his can. So we all pitched in, and there's like Grizzly Wintergreen, Copenhagen mint, like some fruity flavor. And so we add all this into a can to fill up the can, and he total upper horseshoe, bottom horseshoe. And he sits there for like 5 minutes. Like, oh, yeah, I'm fine. Oh, you're talking about it.
Yeah.
And 10 minutes in, he's like, guys, I can't move. I can't stand up. And he has so much dip in his mouth. He has to lean over and just let the spit drool out because he can't spit.
Oh, my goodness, dude.
He was on that bench for, I think, like an hour and a half.
Oh, yeah. I remember my early days of dipping. Dude, there were some terrible times, dude. To like before baseball practice, I'm laying like feet up in my car, like, oh, please go away before practice. Please go away.
Why am I doing this?
Yeah, why am I doing this? Yeah, that reminds me. When I was playing college ball, we had a pitching coach. He's a pitching coach at one of the junior colleges I was at, and we would call him the Walrus. Okay, and I'll tell you why. One, he was morbidly obese, but two, that had slightly something to do with it. But what he would do is he would do the upper and the lower of just full on, I think it was like cope snuff or something like that. But his lips would puff out, upper and lower would puff out like a walrus, dude. And we would always hide our cans when he would come around because he never... Imagine being this big of a dickhead, dude.
Yeah.
You dip like that.
And you're a grown-ass adult, too.
Dude, he was like in his 50s or 60s when during this time frame. And imagine being this big of a dickhead where you dip like that. That's the way you dip, but you never bring your own dip. And so he would just go around bumming dips and just filling up the upper deck and the lower deck of just other people's dip. And I just could never get away from that. I'm like, dude, that's such a dick move, dude. Not only are you bumming dip from everyone, like you're packing hogs, bro. Like, what in the world is going on?
And what is psychopath? Because at least when I dipped a long time ago, I could only do, I think it was Copenhagen. What was it? Copenhagen mint. Copenhagen mint. I couldn't veer off to any other flavors. So like every day, like I'm just gonna dip whatever flavors they have.
Yeah. Yeah, I played ball with a guy, ended up getting drafted. He was like the spitting image of Randy Johnson. Like tall, gangly looking, gnarly looking dude. He was like 6'7", left-handed pitcher, like literally like Randy Johnson's like
For those
spawn.
who don't know, who's Randy Johnson?
Hall of Fame pitcher in like the 90s, Hall of Fame with the Mariners.
Okay.
Look him up, just an absolute filthy pitcher. And this guy, his name was Ryan Paul. Same, like literally looked like Randy Johnson. But he was smart. So what he would do, because again, everyone's bumming dips for everybody. Mm-hmm. The one flavor that nobody bought and nobody wanted anything to do with was Skull Cherry. Because it tastes exactly like cherry medicine.
That might have been my first dip. Thinking back to that, like 14, 13 was like Skull Cherry or Skull Citrus.
Oh, God. Cherry was a brutal flavor. But this guy, being the savage he was, he forced himself to like it, and that was the only one he would buy, so nobody else would bum a dip from him.
Smart.
Dude, chestnut checkers, dude. He thought about it, dude.
Wow. Dude, and just Zens. We were talking about this earlier, man.
Yeah.
Like, so I quit dipping. I was actually on my deployment. So I was I think we'd just come back from Iraq, and I was in Kuwait. And I looked in the mirror, and I realized my teeth were getting yellow. And I was like, oh, people don't like yellow teeth. This looks fucking terrible. This looks gross, dude.
Yeah, this looks bad.
And I remember I quit cold turkey that day. I still remember they had these little like huts with like bathrooms that were on the camp in Kuwait. And you go in there and look in the mirror, and I'm like looking at my teeth, and I'm like, fuck this. And I quit cold turkey. Haven't had a dip since, ever. And I've been not dipping, but I've been doing Zens for past couple months. Dude, that is like crack.
Yeah, dude.
Trying to quit Zens.
Yeah, dude. I'm dumb, man. I was the same thing, man. I dipped forever. Again, like being a part of the baseball culture, like whether as a player and or a coach, like dipping all the time. And then I stopped for like years and years and years and years. And literally just recently, I think it's because of one of my clients out in San Diego, man, like all these guys are chewing something.
Is this at the knife company?
Yeah, the knife company. And I just started throwing Zins in here and there. And now
That's
I'm
how
like,
they get you.
And now I'm buying shit off of Sweden websites, dude. Like, that's the gateway, bro. Like, it's not good. It's not good. And not only am I doing that, I'm buying like 9 milligrams, bro. Like, I've done 15 milligrams.
Gee.
Like, kids, don't do it. I'm telling you right now. And we talked about this over the phone a couple days ago, where it's like, you don't feel bad about it because it's like, there's no tobacco in it. You know, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's just nicotine, and which could be the case, but still, it's like we've got this like false idea that like this will never bite me in the ass later on, you know?
My teeth aren't yellow. The spearmint tastes good.
It says it doesn't cause cancer, you know? So
I totally convinced my girlfriend too, because at first she's like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh no, see, look, it's just nicotine salt. It doesn't
I did the same thing.
Doesn't yellow your teeth. I'm not addicted. It's not tobacco.
I can quit whenever I want.
I can do whatever I want. I'm gonna go.
Here we are. I can't do it.
My streak is 2 days. No
Oh my gosh, dude. I know. I got a question for you. When is it that time where it's like, okay, this is a good time for a Zen?
So
because everyone's got like their own little like, you know, whether you're working on something or you're chilling or like people have their own little like, okay, this is Zen time.
Yeah. So I understand crack addicts so much more now. I can resonate with crack addicts. So I was like 2 days clean of Zens, right? I was like, all right, I'm not partially because there's a shortage, partially because I'm like, I need to stop doing this.
Yeah.
So I'm 2 days, no Zens. And I go to a restaurant and I usually order just beef patties. I eat just meat. So order 2 beef patties, eat the beef patties. And then my brain, without even thinking about it, I finish it, the last bite, put it down. I'm like, oh, I could go for a Zen right now. Not even consciously thinking. And then I'm like, wait, what am I saying?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I'm right there with you, bro. Like, I just today, dude, I bought some lunch, you know, I finish it up. I'm like, like where's my can?
Yeah, I have this sneaking. So what really turned me on to Zens, because I heard of them, but I was like, that's dumb. That's whatever.
Yeah.
And it was months ago, and I was watching a podcast. It might have been Tucker Carlson, Theo Vaughn. And I'm watching it. now that I think about it, I'm like, oh, this is a psyop. He's getting paid. He's getting paid by these fucking people, dude.
It's a psyop. Zen is paying him directly.
And so I'm watching the podcast, and I see Tucker Carlson talking about, oh, how it's great, blah, 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 blah. And then I see some other like show that they're talking about how great it is. I'm like, well, maybe I'll just give it a try.
Yep.
Hooked.
Yeah.
And it was like a week or two ago whenever I was quitting for 2 days. And I just sat there and I was like, those motherfuckers are getting paid by Zen, dude. The tobacco industry is for sure sponsoring them on the down low. Because I go back and watch the episodes and there's like 3 cans stacked up on top of each other in the frame.
Yeah.
They got me, dude. Big tobacco got me.
Yeah, I'm with you, dude. I'm with you. And yeah, like I said, I fell fast, dude. I'm doing like Swedish shit, dude. So here's something. American Zen and Swedish Zen are completely different.
Really?
Yeah.
How
different
so?
packaging, different flavors, different milligrams, completely different.
Do you feel like the quality's different?
I think it's better, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I've got nothing to back that up with, but I think it's better.
Except my own addiction
yeah,
experience.
Yeah, exactly. My crackhead addiction says so. But again, going down rabbit holes. Not addicted, but yeah, going down a rabbit hole, like researching this stuff, like it's so a part of like the Swedish culture. It's very interesting. Like just like the nicotine pouch thing is like, I saw a video of like 3 chicks like who were like on their computers just like working, and they all lifted their lip up, and all of them had an upper deck in, dude.
We're targeted. I saw that same video I saw the other day, dude. It's all propaganda.
It's all propaganda. It's all propaganda. Yeah, well, I know.
And I was thinking about this because with cigarettes and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was watching a video on this, and they were talking about it. With like the cigarette industry, there's extreme, like strict regulations of how you can market it, how you can promote it, disclosures. But regulators passed Zins and nicotine pouches under a different categories, like a tobacco cessation product. So the ways that you can market Zins and these nicotine pouches is way looser than cigarettes. And so that's what has me thinking is that I think big tobacco recognizes they're onto something huge, because Philip Morris, who owns like Marlboro and all those companies, bought Zyn.
No shit.
Oh, yeah. So they own Marlboro, all those companies. They bought Zyn, I don't know how long ago.
Yeah.
So my theory is that they realize they have this window before the regulators crack in.
Yeah,
and they are pouring money into influencers, social media, because the Zyn industry doubled in a year.
Yeah. No, I think you're onto something, dude. You're right. It is a psyop, dude.
Because and it's targeted, man. I open my Instagram and like every other post is like a Zimbabwe, Zinachino.
Yes. It's like the frat boys doing like this, that, the other with Zins, dude. I think it's retarded, but then I'm like,
I start saying it. I'm like, I'm having Zinachino this morning. I'm like, who the fuck am I? What am I saying?
Yeah, dude, I'm right there with you, dude. I think it's so dumb, but then I'm like, I'm in. Yeah, dude. So anyway, yeah, it's I'm definitely hooked on it. I ran out of my can and went to go try to find Zyn, and again, we're in the Zyn shortage crisis right now. Can't find it anywhere. And I ended up finding like this off-brand. It's like absolutely terrible, dude. I'm just like, this is just can't live under these conditions.
Dude, it's like whenever. Do you remember when Spice came out in gas stations? Like people were buying like Spice in gas stations.
What is that?
So I never tried it, but if I remember correctly, it was like a synthetic fake version of cannabis that you could buy at a gas station.
What?
I remember in high school people were doing it. It was called Spice, I think. And buy it at a gas station, but people would have like schizophrenic episodes on this, like just crazy. And they pulled it from gas stations. I might be wrong.
Sounds like a good time. Anyone know where you're
right? I don't think I'm wrong. But so that reminds me, like all these off brands, now that Zyn is out of the picture, are coming on the scene. Like you have On and V, like all
that's
these things.
On. I tried On. I was not a fan, dude.
No, dude. So I tried On for the first time like 2 days ago because they were out of Zyns. So I go to the gas station. I get Cinnamons.
Cinnamon. You're onto something.
It's in my
Invest.
So I get cinnamon Ons. And I open it up, I throw one in, and I'm driving to the library to pick up books on Trump and Vivek Ramaswamy. And I pull it out for a minute while I'm driving, and I just sit it on the back of my hand. I do this all the time with Zins, no problem. It's on the back of my hand, I'm driving, and like 1 minute in, I'm like, what the fuck is it? I look down at my hand. I lift the on pouch up, and there's like a red burn spot
No
on the top of my hand.
way.
Threw them out immediately, dude.
Oh my! You don't think it was like the dye from the cinnamon?
No, it burned.
It burned.
It was something in the pouch.
Yeah.
But it like left this burn, almost like chemical burn on my hand for like an hour
What?
after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's not good.
And so I'm like, Zen is the premier product. Don't do it.
Yeah.
But then you have all these knockoffs coming in.
Yeah. I'm onto this brand. I was telling you about off camera. I'm on this brand called Zio. And I'm not exactly sure if it's tobacco or not. It says like velvet tobacco. I don't know what that is. I haven't Googled it yet. But I really like the flavor of it. And it's comes in. This is when you know you're really addicted to it, because you're like, well, how many pouches comes in there? So like Zen is like 15. These are 25 pouches.
Wow.
They're $5. Zen's like $8.
Start doing the crackhead math, and you're like, all right.
Like, I'm actually up on this, babe. This is house money. This is house money. And it's 9 milligrams. Like, so I'm like, I'm in, dude. I'm in.
See, we're talking about this crackhead behavior. This is what I thought when I first started. I was like, okay. Because I saw Tucker Carlson, like these influencer people, if you want to, whatever they are. But doing Zens, put it on my radar. And I was in this period of my life, first half of this year, where I'd have a lot of work to do, emails, people to talk to, and I'd go on my rooftop patio and I would have a cigar, smoke a cigar, break out my computer. I'd just bust out phone calls, work. I'm like, man, this is great, but I can't smoke a cigar every day. Because at that time too, I was buying them individually, and then I found out about buying cigars in bulk.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, dude, this is half the price.
Yeah.
And so I bought like 30 cigars.
Oh, fuck, dude.
But then, obviously, I started smoking them one every other day. I'm like, oh, well, I got work to do. Let me have a cigar.
Oh.
And so then I'm like, all right, this is not good. I can feel it in my lungs. And so I swapped to Zens. Don't start down this nicotine rabbit hole, kids.
Yeah, it's terrible, dude. It's great, but it's terrible.
Yeah, it is great.
Yeah. What are you going to do? Everyone's got a little bit of something.
Exactly. And so I've been sober now for, I guess, 2 years.
Yeah.
And so it's my one little vice. It's caffeine and nicotine.
It's not the end of the world. I mean, and again, like these nicotine pouches, are they the greatest thing in the world? Probably not. Are they better than you dipping Copaig in snuff? Absolutely.
So I remember my grandpa. He's still around. He's, I think, about to be 90. He's 89.
Hell yeah.
Best man I ever met. So he grew up, and him and his brothers were in a gospel quartet.
Oh.
And so they have records in their house, and they used to be a traveling gospel quartet. They had a tour bus.
Dang.
They cut records, and they would travel. There was like a southern church circuit. So they would drive from church to church throughout like the southern states and play shows. And he got older and he went on a solo tour. And so there's a bunch of like CDs and tapes I have, and it's so cute. It's like him photoshopped in front of clouds. It's like the clouds behind him, and he's like photoshopped with a microphone. This is like 2001 marketing media.
Yeah.
But he always used to chew Levi Garrett.
Oh yeah.
And I thought that was the manliest fucking thing ever. Because we'd be sitting on the porch, and I remember we'd sit on the porch, and whenever I go stay with him, he's like, hey, you want to shoot the mailbox with a BB gun?
You're like, hell yeah.
I'm like, fuck yeah. And so he's like, go get it. And he'd keep like this BB gun behind the, like this like cowboy repeater style BB gun.
Yeah.
He'd keep it behind the front door. So I go grab, I'm maybe like, I don't know, like 7 or 8. And then he's like, all right, and the mailbox is like down at the end of the street. And he's like, all right, have at it. And so I'm sitting there, and you'd hear the metal ting of the mailbox when you hit it. So I'm sitting there like shooting the mailbox with the BB gun, and I look over, and he's just sitting in his rocking chair. Every now and then he'd huge spit line, Levi Garrett, just like Clint Eastwood, just like spitting off the porch. It's like, damn, that's so cool.
Dude, Levi Garrett was the shit back in the day, dude.
I did it for a bit. I'm like, bro, this tastes delicious.
It's delicious.
Like, if this wasn't killing me, I would love it.
Yeah. I was when I was playing college ball, one of my pregame routines, like for batting practice, I would get Red Man, same as Levi, right? Red Man, get sour apple bubble gum, like Big League Chew sour apple, right? Like the real deal. Wrap that thing up into like a golf ball. Throw that in, dude. It was dessert. It was dessert. It was so good. Just sit there and just gnaw on that thing. And again, like the stream is just like a rainbow just shooting out, dude. It was so great, dude. I found an old bag of Red Man. So we moved recently, and I'm still setting up my like kind of in-house photography, videography kind of studio at the house, and I'm like still going through things, and I'm trying to organize and assort, and I opened up this old cigar box that I had I had like a pipe and some like tobacco in there. I open it up, and dude, there's a bag of Red Man sitting in there, and I haven't opened it up yet. But I'm like, well, it's been in kind of like a cool, dark area for a while. It might be still all right, but I haven't opened it up yet. But I did find some Red Man.
You should, if you do open it up, you should incorporate it into a video.
Absolutely, dude. I should. You're right. There should be a presentation about it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you do. You break out the pouch, zoom in on the Red Man, put in a big old chaw, and then you start shooting, doing something, and hitting some targets.
Just put on my night vision goggles.
Have you seen that clip? I think it's from Predator, of Jesse Ventura Jackson.
Okay.
With the pouch of tobacco.
Yeah.
And he's like,
they're in the chopper or something, and he's like, "You want some?" And everyone's like, "Get that shit out of here!" And he's like, calls them pussies or something.
He's like, "You slack jaw faggots." This is what hair. This turned into Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Oh, dude, so great.
That was a blockbuster movie.
Yeah, that was a great movie. That was a great movie. It was diverse. You had the Indian, you had the black guy, you had the white guy. Mm-hmm. Dude, it was so great, dude.
Killing predators in the jungle.
Yeah, that was a good movie, man.
Simpler times.
Simpler times, dude. Absolutely.
Or the iconic scene where it's Schwarzenegger. And who is the actor that played Apollo Creed?
Oh, I know. The Reading Rainbow dude, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. You know what I mean? Like when they meet each other, you son of a bitch, and like grab each other.
It's just like the biggest, bulkiest muscles of all time.
Just zooming in on the biceps for 2 minutes.
Dude, so great. That's another iconic scene, dude. Like that's a meme. It's so great, dude. It's so great.
You're older than I am, but I grew up, my dad, we watched nothing but 80s movies, stuff like that. And you grew up as a young boy watching movies like that, Rocky. I remember my dad had to stop playing Rocky for us when we were younger because I have a little brother.
Just beating the shit out of each other.
So I remember it vividly. We watched, like, I think it was Rocky 2 or Rocky 3 at my dad's house. And so my parents were divorced, and my dad was always like the cool dad. You guys want to watch an R-rated movie tonight? Let's watch Wedding Crashers.
You guys want to see somebody die?
We're like, fuck yeah. You guys want a dirt bike for Christmas? You don't have to wear a helmet. Fuck helmets.
Helmets for pussies.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
And I remember it was like the end credits of like Rocky 2 or Rocky 3, the music's playing, and like immediately me and my little brother just punching each other in the gut. He's like 4 years younger than me, so I'm just whooping his ass. And my dad's like having to separate us. But every time Rocky would come on, he'd come to the living room. We were just like trying to punch each other, shadow boxing at like 10 years old.
That's awesome. Great core memory there.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then you grow up into a well-rounded man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A little bit, just sprinkle a little bit of violence in there.
Yeah. Speaking of violence, so Invicta Coffee Co.
Yeah, man. It's my little side quest that I got going on.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I own a coffee company called Invicta Coffee Co. And it's all e-commerce really right now. I'm not in any kind of stores. And basically, I used to know the former owner of Invicta Coffee. I shouldn't say I used to. We're still good friends. But I used to actually shoot content for Invicta Coffee. This is years ago. And one day he approached me and he was like, "Hey, man, I think I'm going to shut Invicta down." Because his name is also Spencer. Good dude, veteran, strong entrepreneurial spirit with him. Started a bunch of things, see if it worked or not. And all right, not the next one. He would just do a lot of those kind of deals, and Invicta was one of his first ones. And he's like, I think I'm done. I think I'm kind of just over it. And I was like, you know what? I'll take it. And not like I had enough to do anyway in my life. And so I took it over, and I tried to run it the way he was running, like as far as like the aesthetic of the brand. And he did a really nice job of the aesthetic of the brand. But it was very like heavy on the military, heavy on like operator kind of stuff, which, don't get me wrong, it's fucking cool. But I wasn't in the military. I wasn't I wasn't in that life, you know, I wasn't in that space. And so I'm in the middle of a rebrand with it right now. And, so yeah, I was like thinking, I'm like, okay, like you think about like the old holy, you know, Black Rifle Coffee and how, you know, they're like lots of guns outdoors, this, that, the other, which again is cool. I get it, but it's overplayed. Every other coffee company that is trying to be in that space is basically trying to be like Black Rifle Coffee. And I noticed that. And I was just, you know what? I'm going to pull the plug on this and I'm going to completely rebrand it. And I started looking around like things that I enjoy, things that I think are, you know, entertaining, is fighting and violence. And I'm like, who doesn't like, you know, like we share videos with each other all day long of just people getting in the most retarded street fights or just like brutal knockouts or dudes getting their arms snapped in arm bars who didn't tap out or whatever. Like, I don't care who you are, you're going to watch it. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. And me and Spencer will go like weeks without talking. But in that week's time frame, we sent each other like 30, 40 memes of just violence.
It's a form of communication. Like there's no words being said. It's just like send this haha. You like do a little laughing emoji and then on to the next one. But it is a form of communication. Yeah. But yeah, essentially, I looked around. I was like, nobody's really doing that. You know, like that's not like a main niche for any coffee brand to like build everything around just like fighting and combative and violence. So I'm like, you know what? Let's do it. And so I'm in the middle of the rebrand. So with the rebrand, a lot goes into it. It's different names, it's different designs. It's you know, it's a lot of stuff that goes into it. I'm about halfway there, but we're releasing our coconut cream roast this Friday. I don't know where this episode is going to air, but so yeah, so I'm you know, changing names, changing designs, doing all that. All the content is solely based around just again the most ridiculous videos that you can imagine. I'm gonna start now like incorporating more product photography and showing more coffee being present in some of the content that I post. I just haven't been able to because again I'm just waiting for bags to get in and all new designs. There's no purpose for me to be showing coffee bags of things that are going to change, you know, in a month. So yeah, I'm doing that. It's just a lot of fun. It hasn't really taken off yet. I'm hoping it does because it brings me such great joy. But I'll find a ridiculous video and I'll play the little clip of it if it's entirety, and then I'll go back and give my just like most retarded like commentary.
I've seen some of it. You have like a microphone and a drill.
Yeah. And that's like my little like shtick is that like I'll have my microphone, but it'll be on like on a knife, on a spatula, on a rake, on a drill, like whatever. I just think it's something fun to just kind of slip in there. But yeah, I'll give my like completely unsolicited commentary, like not experienced to be or shouldn't be talking about this, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. Kind of little deal with the content. And so it hasn't really taken off yet, although people do. I know people enjoy it, but I kind of like rate it off of how many people share. And if I do a video of just somebody getting their ass kicked, it gets shared way more than just me like giving my retarded commentary on. But I'm hoping that catches on because it is fun to do that stuff.
Yeah, I saw your most recent when you were shirtless. Keep the nipples out. I think that's gonna go somewhere. Keep your nipples out.
That's gonna be the Patreon OnlyFans account if you want to see the whole thing. But yeah, anyway, so that's my little side quest. It's again another way to kind of get out of the media world per se, but still have like some like creative flow of just something fun to do. And there's a lot of work to do. You know, there's a million coffee companies out there because the barrier to entry to make coffee is very, very low. But to do it right, it takes a lot of effort.
Have you seen? I forget his name, but it's Fire Department Chronicles.
Yeah.
Fire Department Coffee Company, the bald guy.
Yeah.
Dude, that guy is fucking
He's crushing
hilarious.
it. He's crushing it. Yeah.
And so I was in the medical field in the military, and then both my parents, my mom, my stepdad, are firefighter paramedics. And so watching his videos, it's spot on.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I've got firefighters in my family. I've got a lot of law enforcement and family or indirect family. And dude, on a real note, like the shit that those men and women have to bag up
Oh yeah.
just mentally, just not talk about or like figure out a way to just bottle that up. We're going to bottle that up and never talk about it ever again, you know, because it's wild. That's some real shit, dude. Real
Especially
shit.
if they're still in the profession.
Yeah.
Like you probably talk to the people that you know. I talk to my parents every now and then. And I did it. They've done it now for 25 plus years of that job every day. I did that for just a handful of years. They've done it for 25 plus years. And the couple years I did it, I mean, there's things that lingered. And I've worked through it now, but I boxed up stuff and dark humor. You just learn how to do it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But it kind of walls you off.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll talk to them on the phone, and they're like, nope, doesn't bother me at all. Just don't talk about it ever. You just verbatim. I was talking to my mom, and she's like, love you, Mom. And she's like, yeah, you go on the call, and you forget about it, and you never think about it again. And I'm like, well, that's what you have to do.
Yeah, dude.
Because
you'll never make it out alive, dude, if you like dwell on that shit.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, on to the next one. And dude, it's not even like blown off limbs or, you know, guy looks like a Halloween mask. It's like, dude, it's sad shit, like babies and just really tragic shit that you got to deal with, dude. It's terrible.
I was talking to my stepdad. We were in his shop a couple years ago, and I was asking about this stuff, and I was like, what are the things that bother you that you've seen? And he was talking about kids that he'd go on and either already dead or trying to work him and they pass away. But he said the thing that bothers him the most, because it's just eerie, there's something just about it, is when you go to hangings. So someone committed suicide and they've hung themselves.
Oof.
And I was talking to him, I was like, why is that? And he's like, well, I've been on like a ton of hangings. And you get called out, usually a welfare check. And so he's telling me about one instance. He went on a welfare check, goes into this, checks the house with PD, nothing in the house. And they check his shop. PD goes in and they're like, yep, come on in. And this guy had hung himself from the rafters of his shop. And so the coroner doesn't cut down the body. EMS cuts down the body, at least talking to him. And so whenever we were talking about it, he went in there with his partner, and because EMS runs on teams of two. And one of them, usually the EMT, if there's an EMT working, because they're below the paramedic, one of them has to hold the body up so it doesn't fall. And then the other person has to climb up and cut the rope. And that's a Tuesday afternoon for you.
Yeah.
And then you have to bag it up. But he said those are eerie because you'll walk in and either they've been there for a while or it's fresh, but the lights are on, the lights are off, and it's just this body hanging there.
Yeah, dude. That's...
And then we started talking about like sports.
Yeah, dude. There's something super eerie about that, man. Not to get super weird, and I don't want the FBI to be knocking on my door, but like...
They're already watching us.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Like, have you ever been like close to a dead body like that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of times.
Yeah. It's a very weird feeling, dude. Cause it's like, it's a human, but not anymore. It's hard to articulate it, but there's just like kind of same thing. Like it's very eerie. It's like the body is completely cold. There's just nothing there anymore. It's just, but there is, but it's not. It's just, it's so weird.
Have I told you the story about the tourniquet drills?
No. Love to hear that.
So it's right in the vein. It's a perfect story to bring out. So before my deployment in around 2017 timeframe, we did workups for the deployment. And part of that was going to Los Angeles. And so I worked at LA County USC Trauma Hospital. And so LA County USC in LA, it's a teaching hospital for USC. But they also have a partnership with the military. It's Navy Trauma School. So we went there for a few months, and you stay in Chinatown, and then every day, like 6 days a week, you work either the emergency department or the OR. So I would scrub in for shifts in the OR. I got to cut a leg off in the OR with like a giggly saw.
That's got to be so weird.
Dude, it's so cool.
You're like, I shouldn't be doing this, but...
Well, we were doing an amputation below the knee. And the doctor, amazing doctor, but she was a little too short. So we cauterized all the meat, and she couldn't really get leverage to cut the leg. And so I was scrubbed in next to her, and I was like, can I do it? And she's like, yeah, sure, here you go. And she hands me the saw, and so I just get to saw back and forth. I get to saw his foot off, or his leg off from the knee down.
Dang.
It goes on the floor, and one of the nurses bag it up in a trash bag. And the entire, like my 14-year-old mind is like, bro, there's a foot in that trash bag.
Yeah.
I need to get a picture with that. And so we're finishing up the operation on the guy. And so it's done. The patient's out, but there's the black trash bag with a foot in it. And so I like talk to one of the nurses. I'm like, hey, grab my phone out of like my pocket because I got scrubs on. She grabs my phone and I open up the bag and I pull this. It's like, I'll show you pictures of it after this. But it's a foot all the way up to the knee. It's just cut off, meat hanging off. I pull it out of the trash bag, and I'm like, all right, now take a picture of me. And I hold the severed leg up like this. And she's like, no, you can't do that. Bro, that would have been the best picture ever.
Oh, my God. Imagine what's going on through her head. She's like, this fucking psychopath. He's going to go jerk off to this later. Fucking creeper.
And so that was one awesome experience. But before we got to work in the ED, we did cadaver labs. So we did a lot of drills and stuff working because you'd work in a team because when we would deploy, it would be in like a STP, so essentially like a field hospital. And so in the workups, we were practicing working with our doctor, nurses, and us. And so we did cadaver labs, one of the last things to do before we got out into the emergency department. And I'll never forget it. It's burned in my mind. We go into the cadaver lab. And there's two bodies. It's this, I don't know, like 40-year-old guy and this maybe like 60-year-old dead lady. They both just have sheets on them, and then they have bandages over their eyes taped over because the eye, that'd be weird if you just looked at their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever you die in like a teaching hospital like that, if no one claims the body, they just use your body to practice on and like learn on, right? So always claim your body. So we go in there. And I'll never forget, we pulled the sheets off of them, and we did a thoracotomy, like a clamshell thoracotomy on the other guy where you cut their chest open, you put in rib spreaders and open them up. And we just went through a lot of techniques. But the other lady, maybe in her 60s, she'd been dead for about 2 weeks, and they just put her in the cooler for 2 weeks.
Whoa.
So what you were talking about earlier, the body's cold. They pulled her out, and they have her on the table, and she's just ice cold. And we went through a bunch of interventions, like we worked on her airway. We did a crike, cut her throat open, put an airway in, bunch of stuff. Towards the end of it, to cap it off, they're like, all right, we're going to do tourniquet drills. And whoever can do the tourniquet the fastest wins a T-shirt. We're having this conversation around this dead body.
Yeah, like this is so sick.
He's like, all right, whoever puts a tourniquet on her fastest gets a T-shirt. We're like, fuck you, I want that T-shirt.
I'm going to do this so hard right now.
I want that $15 T-shirt. And so... like, all right, we're ready. So it's 9 or 10 of us, and we have our proctor on the other side of the body. And so they had stitched a plastic tube through her abdomen, and she had like a gash on her inner right thigh. They had put a tube through her abdomen, pushed it down into her legs, stitched it up. So they'd turn on a pump, and she's on this metal autopsy table. They'd turn on a pump, and it pushes out blood out of that gash to like fake blood.
Yeah,
simulate it. And so they turn it on, and they're like, all right, go. And they hand the person in line a tourniquet. And so we cinch down a tourniquet on her leg. And then if you put it on right, it would stop that blood flow out of the gash. So it's good practice, technical practice. But after about the 5th or 6th person, you got water everywhere. The skin's really thin. The skin and the meat starts coming off. And so they'd have a bucket of water. You'd do the tourniquet drill. You'd finish. They'd time you. Then you take the tourniquet and you wash it off in a bucket of water. Right? Get all the meat and all the skin off of it, hand it to the next person. And about the 7th or 8th person, we were all doing it for time. He was just a spaz. I can't remember his name now, but they say, go. He puts a tourniquet on really fast, cinches it up, and they say, time. And the proctor's standing on the other side of the body, directly across from him. And he finishes. And he takes the tourniquet off really quickly, same energy, and pulls it off across the body away from him towards the proctor like this. And just juice, skin, flecks of meat go flying off towards the other guy.
No.
So anyways, talking about bodies.
Yeah, anybody been a cannibal here? Because it sounds like he's tasted human flesh now. That's terrible, dude.
Yeah, but it is wild, man. Like the smell. I remember that smell stuck with me for weeks afterwards of just like the dead bodies.
Yeah.
But it is weird being around bodies like that.
It's really weird, dude. It's like lights are on, or, it's like nobody's home, dude. It's crazy, dude.
Crazy. Who were you around?
It was my mom. Don't laugh, dude. Don't laugh. Don't laugh.
Tell me about that, man. How was that?
Well, yeah. So she passed away. She passed away suddenly. She wasn't in the greatest shape, but there was never any like crazy like outliers where it's like, oh, this is, I mean, I should take that back. You know, she wasn't in the greatest shape. She was diabetic, you know, lived a pretty stagnant lifestyle, smoker, you know.
How old was she?
She was probably 60.
She's still fairly young.
Yeah. But yeah, she basically, I wasn't there when it happened. I was there hours after, but essentially the day before, she had gone in not feeling good, went to our local doctor, gave her some kind of, you know, medication. I can't remember what he said she thought she had, but it was just, again, like, you're sick. That's it, you know? And then, yeah, dude, next day, gone.
What year was this?
Oh man, I was teaching at, I was living and teaching in LA. So man, this probably has to be like 8 years ago, maybe now.
Oh my god! So did they figure out?
Well, actually, no, dude. It might have been dude. It might have been like 10 years ago now because Dana and I just started dating. Like, and again, bless her heart, but like, yeah, we were probably dating for like a couple months, dude. When I lost my mom, dude. Yeah.
So did they ever figure out what the cause of death was?
No, I think it sounded like heart failure. Again, living a very stagnant lifestyle, being a smoker for, you know, like a century, it felt like, you know, she'd been smoking for a long, long time. And yeah, that's what it sounds like, heart failure. Yeah. But yeah, that was a brutal phone call from my dad.
And you weren't expecting it at all.
No, man. No, not at all. That's worse, I feel like, and maybe I'm being biased, but I feel like that's worse than, you know, having someone you love who is dying slowly, let's say from cancer or something like that. Don't get me wrong. Both suck a lot. But when it's like you don't get to, you know, not saying like you're saying goodbye, you know, while someone's dying of cancer, but like you go through those checklists, you know, internally where you're like, okay, like I'm getting warmed up to this idea, you know, like I know it's coming, you know.
You get to say everything that you want to say.
Exactly.
Hopefully.
Exactly. Right. But when it's something sudden, you don't get any of that. And that eats at you a lot, you know.
Do you have any regrets or things that you
yeah. Yeah, I for sure have regret. But then I also think, you know, I lean on, you know, everything happens for a reason, and you know the way things happen, that was the way it was supposed to lay it out. You know, maybe that was God's plan, whatever it was. But you know, I do have, you know, comfort knowing that. And again, growing up, she and I were like oil and water a lot. You know, we just didn't mix very well. But later on, she and I like started to, you know, really embrace each other and be on way, way better terms. And I actually remember that, like having a phone call with her, and, you know, it was just such a great phone call. And, you know, I walked away from that feeling like, oh, like, you know, like we're good. Like, this is good, you know? And then of course I think she passed away maybe like a month or two after that, you know? So,
and she was the main one raising you when you were growing
yeah.
up.
Yeah. So it hits a little different, dude. It hits a little different. But yeah, it's just, of course I've got regrets, man. Like I always think about, you know, the dumb shit and the dumb things I put my parents through growing up, you know, but you know, you zoom out and you realize a lot of kids do a lot of dumb shit and put their parents through a lot of, you know, unnecessary bullshit. But you know, I was their only child, you know, like certain things hit a little different when that's a scenario. But yeah, I definitely have regrets, but at the same time, you know, I think, you know, everything happens for a reason, and you know, it is what it is. You know?
Definitely, man. And it's funny how things work out like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think we've talked about my dad passed away from cancer, but we got diagnosed. He got diagnosed that it was stage 4 in March out of nowhere. Passed away in May. Still really quick, but
wow.
There's a big difference that you know it's coming.
Yeah.
And we all knew it was coming, and luckily we were all there right there at the very end.
That's good.
So watched him go, and earlier we were talking about bodies, you know that, like, okay, this is my dad, or this is my mom. And then when you see them go a minute later, you're like, whatever that was, the spirit or something, like that's no longer there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we're kind of touching on. Like, it's hard to articulate that, but that you did a good job there. It's like, it's their spirit. It's gone. That's their shell. That's their vessel. That's their body, but their spirit is gone, you know?
Did you, when your mom passed away, did you see any signs, or after she passed away, or like any feelings that she was around or anything like that?
You know, I didn't, but my dad did. And my dad is not a spiritual guy by any means. I didn't grow up with, you know, God, you know, the idea of God in our family. But he would call me and he's like, I saw your mom. You know, I saw this spirit, this something, you know, she visited me. So like along, you know, for a while, you know, there was a lot of those. I was like, oh, your mom came to visit me, you know, and which is odd. Again, my dad, not a spiritual guy.
It'd be different if he was on the far end of that spectrum, like almost to expect it.
He was literally on the other side.
Wow.
Yeah, and he would call me and tell me things like that. So, yeah, man, it was super shitty. And yeah, I was at work and my dad called me and I obviously left work right away and came home and he at first like, he's like, don't go in there. Don't go in there. And I was like, no, I have to.
This was the hospital room?
No, it was in her bed.
This happened at home.
Yeah. She fell asleep and didn't wake up. Yeah. And like that, talking about like not saying goodbye. It's like, if I didn't go in that room and say my goodbyes, like that would be my ultimate regret of all time. Is this situation that I'm about to walk into going to be tremendously hard? Yes, it's going to be terrible, but I have to do that. I have to go in and say my goodbyes. Yeah. And so, yeah, talking about like the cold body and like kissing my mom on the forehead, even though again, she's gone, you know, it's just a shell, but I felt like that was like my due diligence. I had to do that for my sake and for her sake.
And it's probably because we probably had a similar experience of I asked everybody to leave the room.
Yeah.
When my dad passed away and just took my time in there. And you know, you have these conversations and you make these promises of what you're going to do and how you're going to honor them and live your life. And it feels like time stands still when it's just you and your parent that you just lost in that room.
You're not lying, man. Yeah. I remember saying that and just obviously just tears everywhere, but I remember telling her like, I'm going to make you proud, you know? So yeah, it was brutal, dude. It was brutal, but you know, as each year goes by, you know, it gets a little bit better. It'll never be, you know, the same, or you'll never just be over it. You know, her passing, happened right around St. Patty's Day. So every year you get that little bit of a reminder, you know, and probably one of the biggest stings is that, I know she really wanted to be a grandma. And so like she doesn't get to live out those, you know, those experiences that she wanted. But yeah, it's a little brutal. Yeah. Kids will never know like who grandma was, you know?
And it's, I mean, now as technology goes, like you think about me and you.
Yeah.
Whenever we're in our 70s or our 80s or maybe our 120s, you know, with modern technology, it's not far-fetched. I think we could live to 150.
Yeah.
Talladega Nights reference.
Nicely done.
Thank you. But we're going to have videos of us.
Yeah.
Like our great-grandkids, if the world's still around, will be able to see videos of us in our 30s.
Yeah.
Just as we were, and they'll get to know us. But your mom, my dad, like our grandparents, we don't really have that.
Yeah. I barely have that of myself, dude.
Yeah.
Like I think about like photos and good luck with video, but like of me being an athlete back in the day, like I have very few things when I look about what kids nowadays have where I'm like,
whole life.
Like, holy shit, dude, you got like highlight reels of like your game yesterday, bro. Like I would be lucky if I got a highlight reel of my entire life, you know, like it's wild. And I guess fast forward and unless the sun decides to blow up, you know, it, you know, what's that technology going to look like after that next generation, you know?
It's gonna be crazy.
It's going to be insane, dude. We're going too fast, man.
Too fast.
Too
And
fast, dude.
with artificial intelligence,
Yeah.
like every year it's like not doubling, but like exponentially
Yeah.
advancing.
Yeah.
I going back to like spirits and family members. So I'm Christian, I believe in God and Jesus, and this past year I was baptized when I was a young kid, and life happens and you kind of go away and grow away from your faith. At least I did, and came back to it and was called to get baptized again this year and recommit my life to being just a better man and trying to follow in the image of Jesus. And it made me think about Christianity, but also other religions in the sense of your ancestors, right? You have your ancestors and these people that are following you and guiding you. And so I've had both my great-grandparents who really helped raise me, my grandfather and then my dad. And ever since that, I've thought about there's my religion, but there's a lot of things in my life that I feel like my ancestors are watching me. You know, they're guiding me.
Yeah.
In the decisions that I'm making, the endeavors that I take on, because these people really loved me. And I've talked to a medium in the past. I went into it skeptical, but I took some things away. And I asked her, like, as a medium, and she wrote books on the subject. I met her through a family friend. And what's your interpretation of death and like connecting with these people? She's like, well, in my interpretation of it, like these people that love you, that really raised you and helped guide you and raise you, when they pass on, they're always kind of connected to you. That love, that true connection, they're always going to be in this realm that we can't really conceptualize.
Yeah.
And so they're going to be there to support you and have your back. And maybe it's just my own feeling, but these past couple of years, I feel like anything I've really applied myself or tried to go after, if I just sat and humbled myself and asked for guidance, it's kind of come to me. And then when I think about it, I'm like, oh, these things, if I apply myself, have worked out because I have 5 angels. I have these people that have my back, you know.
That's great. That's great. I'm like, so again, I mentioned like God was not present in my upbringing. But I always had questions, because nothing ever really added up to me. And through my wife, and her family, you know, I've really started to, you know, open up to the idea of God and Jesus. And so I'm learning about it. But there's just so many things that happen in this world, and just biologically, like the way a woman can have a child, like give birth. I'm like, that just doesn't happen. Like there's something behind that, you know what I mean? Like and I truly now believe, you know, it's through the grace of God, and just like, there's just so many things that I feel like that are just undeniable at this point, that like there is a God, you know, and he does exist. And I saw this video of a gal talking about, essentially like addressing people who don't believe in God. Right. And she's like, if, you know, and I'm going to paraphrase, but essentially she's saying like, if it turns out there is no God, all I ended up doing was teaching my kids how to be good people, and love one another and be good to other people and all these kind of things. I'm like, I was like, that's actually really awesome, you know, because a lot of that, it is about being a good person, and it is about being a good person to other people and your loved ones, and having that moral compass, and treating people right and treating yourself right. And now as I've gotten older, I'm like, yeah, dude, like that's what I want to be about. You know, I don't want to be reckless. I don't want to be toxic. I want to be a good person. And so, yeah, I've started to bring God in my life now. And, it's, again, I'm slow, but, I know it doesn't matter. I know I can do it on my terms and my speed. But I've definitely felt differently now, you know.
Was having your kids is what opened you up to start exploring?
I mean, that probably has something to do with it. Yeah. But my wife has strong faith. Her whole family has a strong faith. And so, that's kind of how I started getting introduced to it. And they never like crammed it down my throat or anything, but you know, we'd pray, you know, over meals and stuff like that. And I have a lot of relatives out in Texas who are all Christian.
Shout out to Texas.
Shout out to Texas. We love Texas. Texas doesn't love us, but we love Texas.
We love Texas. And dude, speaking of that, so we're looking to move out of state in the future. And we visited Tennessee, and I was telling my girlfriend, I'm like, the second we move out of California and people ask where you're from, I'm going back I'm from Georgia.
Yeah.
This period of California never happened.
Yeah, well, you're not lying.
I'm not. I'm from Georgia.
Yeah, I am from Georgia, so therefore I am from Georgia.
I'm from Georgia. And so my girlfriend, she's Russian. And I'm like, maybe you should just tell people you're from Russia instead of California. That might be better.
It's actually going to be better.
You moved to the
south.
South.
So you escaped the communist country.
Right? Like,
her English is really good.
Isn't that crazy to think? Like, I know this. Like, we go to Nashville or the South. She's going to be like, okay, I'm from California. They'd be like, you better not bring your California shit around here.
Yeah.
I'm from Russia. Wow, that's so cool. Tell me about Russia.
100%, dude. 100%. There's definitely that stigma attached to being from California, man.
Yeah.
It's brutal. But I always try to, whenever I have to say I'm from California, I immediately follow up with like, but I'm the good kind of California.
Dude, so it's funny, brother. So we were in Nashville like a week or so ago. And we were in this town, Franklin, Tennessee. This is just south of Nashville. Love the town, and they have a lot of Civil War history there. There's a Battle of Franklin happened there. And growing up, it reminded me, I loved Civil War history. Like, growing up in Georgia.
Isn't that funny? Once you got older, at least for me, like, I didn't give a fuck about history. Now that I'm older, I eat that shit up.
Yeah. And we go there, and I remember, so the first day we were in Franklin, we went to this coffee shop. And we walk in, and there's people with like ear piercings and certain haircuts behind the bar, and I'm like, huh, that's out of character. And I look on the wall, and there's a flag up on the wall that's not the American flag, and I'm like, oh, we're not gonna spend our money here. And we walk out. We're gonna find somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so we walk down the street, and the next day we go. Try a different coffee shop, and they got American flags on the walls and like war generals, and I'm like, this is our spot. And we go across the street to this antique shop, and we walk in and we start talking to the owners, and I see this picture on the wall, and it's Robert E. Lee, the Confederate general, amazing general, a genius, and go up to the counter and ask him, how much is this picture of Robert E. Lee? Because this would look great over my fireplace. And she gives me the price, and then we start talking to her, and there's this older couple next to the counter. And come to find out, they're the owners of this antique shop. They've spent their whole life born and raised in Tennessee and in Franklin. And the old man, he's like, yeah. I tell him I'm from Georgia. And he's like, well, it's a good thing you're from Georgia, and thank you for your service. And we got to talking about California people. He's like, we're seeing a lot of influx of California people coming into Tennessee, and you talk to them, and they say they're from California, and then they always follow up with, but we're the good kind. We're not the bad kind of people. And then 10 minutes later, they start spouting off all these nonsense ideas. They're all the same.
Yeah.
It's funny, man.
Yeah. That was a really good Southern accent, by the way, too.
Dude,
that was good.
I had a strong-ass accent when I was growing up. And then I got in the medical field, and I'd walk into a room, and I'd be like, well, it turns out you have herpes. And I'm like, dude, I got to get rid of this accent. No one's going to take me seriously.
Yeah, this guy's fucking with me, right?
Yeah. And so I killed the accent when I first couple years in the military. But I have a feeling as soon as we move back down, it's going to come back.
Oh, yeah. Dude, when I'm from California, but every time I went to Texas, I left with an accent. It's just so easy to do, man. Yeah. It's so easy, and it sounds good. I like it.
What time are we at right now, young Jamie? An hour 50.
All right.
Well, I guess we should wrap it up.
Yeah.
You want to let everybody know where they can find you?
Yeah, Nomadic Media, at Nomadic Media. Shoot me a DM if you got some work for me. But if you got any questions like media, camera, anything like that stuff, anything that falls under that umbrella, I'm just happy to help you guys out. And yeah, shoot me a DM, dude.
All right. Well, thank you for being here, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, dude. This has been a blast, dude.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.